Darren, you and I have reconnected here over the last few months. It was serendipitous, I think, a little bit.
Serendipitous, good word for
it. Ran into each other at a couple of different restaurants, and so we just got to talking. And you told me some fascinating stories that I think are really important for us to grasp. You know, what we do here at the Stone Table, we talk about the intersection of the marketplace and of God in the world. And and so your story is fascinating to me on so many levels. And so I want to tap into it a little bit here.
Okay.
So, you know, you kind of went backwards, I think, from where a lot of people go. You know, a lot of people, they're believers. They grow up in the church. They attend church. Maybe if they're really serious, they start volunteering at the church. And then one day, maybe, you know, down the road, they get to go on staff, or they aspire to be in full-time vocational ministry. You've actually gone the opposite direction.
Yeah.
You spent what, 20 plus years in full-time ministry, and
20 plus years. Yeah, that's what I was.
Marketplace. Now you're back in the marketplace. And so can you give us just a little bit of that history? Because I think your story is going to be really, really encouraging to a lot of people. Tell us a little bit about how you started in ministry and now are back in the marketplace. Give us a little of that background.
Well, first of all, thanks. Yeah, it's been great reconnecting with you. And like I said, I just think a God thing. And obviously, I spent a good deal of time as the coach of Notre Dame University, hence why I'm broadcasting here live from South Bend, Indiana. No, I'm just not technologically savvy enough to know how to change my background. So if anybody's wondering, that's why I'm sitting here at Notre Dame Stadium. All right. No.
Fair enough.
No, I thought that was kind of funny when you first posed that question just a moment ago, because I went, wouldn't it be great? Wouldn't it just be great? Wouldn't it just be great, Erik? And if in like 10 years, we're all of a sudden meeting, you're saying, isn't it, most people, man, they start off in full-time ministry and then they go part-time, then they volunteer, and then they get out there in the marketplace, man, where they really need to be, Look, I love the time that I had in full-time ministry, but you're absolutely right. And I just think some of those notions that we have, because I remember the people, and I met several of them over the years who did that, who volunteered at our church and then came on part-time, and then the glorious day that they came into full-time ministry, just that was like the pinnacle, the top, and it's just so funny how, since I have left the ministry, how many former ministers I ran into, or just people who were in the church, and they just all had this face. They all just go, "Oh, what happened? What are you doing now?" And I'm like, "Oh my God.
You were in the big leagues, man. And now you're in the big leagues. You got called down.
Yeah. What was your fall from grace? That you're just out here working a job now. Oh my gosh. That just cracks me up. That attitude that I get from people. Right. And I'm like, dude, it is nothing like that. It's just God has opened a door for ministry that I just can't believe, that I sort of knew existed, but I never really fully grasped. You know what I mean? Yeah. I just love what God has called me to. Yeah. For 20 plus years, I was in part-time ministry, and then full-time ministry as a children's and family pastor at two, very large mega churches here in Central Indiana, two of the largest in the Christian world. And just through a series of events, ended up leaving the first post, going on with another mega church, and still just not feeling fully utilized. And God was doing something within me. And then ended up leaving that second position at that mega church and not really sure what to do. And without going into great detail about the circumstance and situations around him, first of all, because again, here's where people always say, "Oh, what happened?" Nothing bad happened, dude. I didn't love my wife. That's good. I'm not on the bottle, not on the pipe. Nothing like that. Nothing bad happened, man. It's just those doors were closed. Those times in ministry were through,
Right.
And first of all, I'm not one of those. I am not a subtle person at all. God sometimes needs to really smack me upside the head to get my attention, because I will get blinders on and I will plow into what I'm doing. And he just sometimes has to really shake me up to get my attention. And this was one of those instances, especially leaving the last post that I had, because I thought, okay, I'm going to be here. I had it all planned out what I was going to do. I love ministry and I loved what I was doing in the church. And I got to know the movers and the shakers, buddy, and all that. And I had planned on moving up the food chain, as it were. And God said, no, we got some different plans, man.
Right.
So when I left my second position that I had after 20 some years in ministry, I was just kind of, well, now what, God? Now what do I do? You know, not knowing what he had in store for me. And if I really could tell you just about this, I just had this dream.
Yeah,
God gave me this dream. Yeah, it really changed the direction and course of my life. Like I said, I thought ministry was where I was always going to be. So when I left that second post, my wife just kind of looked at me and said, well, what's the next step? I said, well, it's to get right back out there, update that resume, start working those connections I have and finding out what door, where I'm going to go next. And I went to bed one night. And like I'd said, up until that point, ministry had just full-time, paid ministry had been my life. And it's where I thought my future was going to be. And I had this dream. And in this dream, I was getting ready to preach. And if you don't know by now, to listen to me for a few seconds, I love to speak publicly. It's just a passion I have. I enjoy it, And so I had this dream that I was getting ready to speak and I was going to be giving the sermon. And I knew, I can tell you exactly what church it was. It was Joel Osteen's church, down in Texas, the big former Houston Rockets arena.
Little small startup work, right?
A little small startup. Yeah. I like to start small, work my way up, right? No, man. I was going to speak there and the place was packed. The worship was rocking. The people were hopping and I was pumped. I couldn't wait to get up on that stage. And someone, not Joel himself, I don't know where Joel was that day. I must have been filling in for him. But anyway, somebody introduced me and I got up there and I got up to the to the lectern up there and I put down my iPad, I powered it up, I put down my notes and I had highlighted 4 different colors, one for biblical references, one for personal experience, you know what I mean? And I had these books I was going to read quotes out of. I was ready to rock this thing, man.
You're going to preach to 10,000 people that day, right?
Oh, 10,000. No, there were 25, 30 if there was a person in the place. Right. It was packed out, man.
Yeah.
And I mean, I was doing the gestures, I had the hand motions, I had it all down. And just as I got ready to speak, every light in the place went out. We just had this huge power outage. And I kind of looked around. You could hear people murmuring, but my lapel mic was still on. And I was just kind of like, my first thought, okay, what did the tech guys do to screw up my sermon
Always
today?
The tech guys' fault. Yeah, always blame the tech guys.
You poor tech guys out there. We love you. I do, man. You guys always are the first line of blame. So I just went, okay, what happened? Well, whatever. So I could hear myself in this massive arena. And I said, okay, people, let's just, everybody stay put. The tech guys will get this worked out. We'll be ready to rock here in a second. But while we're waiting, I have this video clip that goes with what I'm going to speak about today. So let's watch the screen. So I turn around to the massive football-sized screen that was behind me. And all I got was that little Mac spinning wheel of death, the little colored wheel. And I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, not even that's working. So I turn around, I go, well, no matter. While we wait for the lights to come on, let me begin by telling you a little story. And as I did that, all the lights came up. And to my surprise, the whole arena had emptied out. Everyone just left. And I realized in the dream that, okay, well, there's no show, there's no lights, there's nothing for them to see. They've all moved on, except there were like 12 people. I knew there were 12 in the audience and they were all spread out. And there were 2 young ladies there. There was a guy in the back and they just were all sitting around. And they looked at each other and all kind of snapped their heads around like they didn't know, or they were new to the church. I just knew that they were new to church. They didn't know what they were supposed to do. Were they supposed to leave because the lights went out? What's going on? And I just kind of hung my head and laughed. And so I just motioned to these people to come forward in the sanctuary. So they started making their way down front and I powered down the iPad. I pushed it all off to the side and closed my book and turned my notes over. And very vividly, I remember all this detail. I picked up my Bible and I started walking down the massive steps, like the Capitol, going down there, walking down all those steps. And started loosening my tie, which was another indication it was a dream because I hate wearing ties. So I went down and I just sat down. I put my Bible down. I leaned back on the stairs. A couple of girls, they sat right there. One guy sat in the front row. One guy over here opened a box lunch, which I still can't figure out why that was in the dream. I must have been hungry or something. But anyway, he just opens his lunch and starts eating. I think, well, that's weird. And we just start talking, right? That's it. I woke up that morning. And Erik, I swear to you, I woke up that morning, I had no desire to go back into full-time ministry, to be a congregational employee, to be a pastor anymore. It was gone. And I told my wife that. I said, I think God has really done something for me. I think he's taken that from me, And I just struggle. Wow, that was such a part of me that's been taken. Did I do something wrong? What happened? Where am I going? My head was just spinning. And so my wife said, well, while we think about it, you need to take something. We need insurance because it's running out. Because Kathy at the time was working from home, doing something part-time, and we homeschool our girls, So, at the time she was kind of finishing up that end of our part of our life. So we're just looking what to do. And I said, well, I'm just going to take a job. And I'm going to take a job at this company that I'd worked for as a courier years before. It's a logistics company, delivery company. And so I thought they've got great benefits. I'll just go back there and do that until God gives me my next ministry, So I go to work at this place and I work outside. And for this delivery company, I work outside all day long. That's my whole thing, And so anyway, we're working one day and we go to lunch, and at this specific company, I work with this little group, about 10 or 12 people, and there's multiple groups of 10 or 12 that work to get all the work done at this place. And this is my little group I'm working with. And one day I'm sitting at a table at lunch with one of the guys, and he asked me, he says, so what are you doing here? Bishop, what are you doing here? That's my nickname at work, but that's another story. So he calls me Bishop. What are you doing here anyway? So I'm telling him this story, and he gets this goofy look on his face. And I said, what are you laughing about, man? And he just kind of points around the table, because he and I were sitting there as the rest of the team was coming, getting their lunch, just sitting down.
You told him.
I told him the dream story.
Yeah.
I said, if you really want to know, is his name? I said, it is. I'll tell you the story. And I told him about the dream and how I just feel, God's got something else. I don't know what it is, but I'm just kind of here for a short time till God gives me what's next. And he points around the table, and Erik goes like a light went off. I looked around, and there were 10 or 12 guys around the table.
Wow. Just
like my dream.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow. And I suddenly realized, it just like the light went off. This is where God has me.
Yeah.
And he's got me for a reason, a specific reason, to be Jesus to these guys, man. And from that day forward, I haven't looked back. I've been there going on 5+ years, and I may be there. I don't know how long I'm going to be there, but I just love what God has called me to. And the great thing about those 10 or 12 guys, not the great thing, the sad thing, but the great thing for me as a pastor, none of them had any kind of relationship with the Lord. Yeah. And here I am, man. And I just go to work every day just thinking, God, that I get to go and I get to be Jesus to these guys, and I get to pour into them, man. And it's blown my mind. I feel more like a minister now than I did at any time I was in the church being paid to be a minister. Yeah.
So, Darren, that's an amazing story. I think the imagery, just really resonates, and the way God just kind of opened your eyes that day sitting around the lunch table and showed you like, this is what that was all about. So you mentioned that they call you the bishop. They started calling you pastor, right? And then it moved up. Like you moved up the ranks, right? So, right. I've always told people, I spent 12 years in full-time ministry. I spent 12 years with people calling me, Pastor Erik. And then I ended up back in a marketplace role, and, really wrestled with that identity until one day I realized now pastor is not, it is a job title because
it is
work as employees at churches, but pastor is a spiritual gift, right? It's one of the spiritual gifts that were given to people in the church. And so when you think of that title, pastor or bishop, how do you utilize that now working for this shipping and logistics company each and every day? How do you embrace that role in that environment?
Well, that's an excellent question. My mind's going about 1,000 different things to say. We have this image in our mind of when we say the word pastor, right? What comes to mind? Guy standing in front of people. He's got a 3-piece suit, and all this other stuff. And it's in a church, in the context of a church, right? And certainly that is a calling, and I believe there is a calling 100%. To be that.
There's something special about that ecclesiastical role, right?
There is, and it's beautiful. And to pastors out there, if you're watching this, God bless you. Just relish your calling. It's such an important and vital role you fill. But there's some of us that have those callings, that have those giftings. You know what? And God means to use them in different ways, right? The pastors, the Old Testament, there's John the Baptist out there. I'm more akin to him, standing in the wilderness, shouting, wearing the camel skin, smelling like, heaven knows what. I'm sure people didn't look at him and they didn't think pastor, right? They think the guy's in the temple wearing the robes, right? This idea. No, man, I feel, like I said, I feel more like a pastor now than I ever have. I was sharing with someone from my work who's in a position of management over me. And we were talking one day, just one-on-one, and he was just asking how things were going and all that other stuff. And I just started sharing him, knowing that he has a relationship with Christ. I said, well, man, I'll be honest with you. I said, the work is just what it is. It's the work, I said, but here's what I love. And I just went on about, how I was talking to this guy, pouring into this person and this thing over here, and how much I love my job because of that. And he just laughed. He said, you're like a rogue pastor. That's you're a rogue pastor. Yeah, I am. I'm a rogue pastor, man. I'm a bishop. Yeah, I got that's so funny because when I went to FedEx, I didn't go there with the mind. Like I said, I went because I needed a job and I needed the benefits and I needed this, and so it wasn't a great, calling when I walked through the doors of the place, right? I just went there because I needed it, and it wasn't until later that I really realized what it was, the beautiful thing God had called me to, and really embraced it like I am now. And when I went in, I went in and I just started to get to know the guys that I was working with, from that day forward, that day in the buff, where I just really started to love them and wanted to get involved in their lives, discipleship, and just started loving these guys. And I never told anybody. Nobody asked. So I didn't tell them that I'd been a minister for 20 years before coming there, And one day I'm riding around with one of the guys and he's sitting there and he's talking about his binge drinking and what he had done the past weekend. And he was telling me this. I won't go into the details, just this ridiculous story about something.
This is a G-rated conversation.
Yeah, G-rated, right. We'll give it G-rated. Yeah. That he woke up to after a weekend of binge drinking, and I'm laughing about the story because it was just hilarious, And he finally, after talking, says, hey, so, Darren, what'd you do before, you came here? I said, I was a pastor for about 20 years. And he goes, oh, holy blankety, 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 blank. Are you kidding me? I go, yeah. His response even cracked me up more. He goes, well, I'm sorry. He starts apologizing. I said, what are you apologizing for? Oh my gosh. How come you're not, convicting me of sin and telling me I'm going to hell and stuff? And I said, well, if I hear an offense that's hell worthy, I'll let you know. But so far I haven't, all I've heard so far is some dumb things you've done, I don't even think we've bordered sin yet, but I'll let you know if you want me to. And I just was lighthearted and laughing about it. So he said, okay. So he started calling me Preacher Man. Preacher Man is there. And then everybody got onto it, started with me Preacher Man. And the guy I'm talking about, he was kind of like the alpha male of the group. You know how these things work. Nothing changed. High school, just nothing changes. You got your alpha males, you got the geeks, you got all these categories, right? And so he's kind of like the alpha male in the group. And he comes in one morning and he goes, hey, Preacher Man, I was watching TV last night and there was this one guy, big African-American guy, and he was hilarious, just like you, right? And he's a pastor, just like you, And his name was something Jakes T. He had some letters. I said, Bishop T.D. Jakes. Yeah, Bishop T.D. Jakes. He was hilarious, man. Like we're gonna start calling you Bishop, and everyone kind of went on. So the called me Bishop. So Bishop's kind of my nickname around there. And so yeah, it's just funny. So they all kind of got into calling me that. That's how the nickname came about.
Yeah, it's fascinating to me, Darren. I just talked to a business's missionary overseas, and we were talking about why the marketplace is so important, or is such a powerful channel for gospel conversations. And he talked about this idea of the marketplace brings renewable relationships into the lives of missionaries, right?
Yeah, it does.
And really that's what you're showing, and that's what you're experiencing is just this. The Lord is bringing you into these renewable connections and conversations with people who need
right.
And so I think that's fascinating.